When life knocks you down, you can either stay down there or you can get up and grow. And that means you have to learn the valuable life lessons that experience offers you and integrate it into your adult self so that you can thrive. With me today to share her Get Up and Grow story is Stephanie Frieslaar. Stephanie, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me and welcome here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. One of the most terrible ways that life can probably knock us down is when we lose a child. Stephanie, will you share your story with us of your loss and the grief?
Okay, so basically, I actually didn't just lose one.
Mm.
I don't know if I told you if- how many. I actually went through four losses in my
Sure.
35 years of life. So I think the major one for me was 10 years ago when I lost my daughter. So it was the most perfect pregnancy. I didn't have any complications. Everything, listen, we bought everything for her. We bought her cot. We had everything that you could think of. And yeah, just at the end, full term baby, 3.2 kgs. I just started having some complications. And so it started with me telling my husband, my now husband, we weren't married that time yet, that this baby is not moving as much as she used to because she was an extremely active baby. And then I went to the hospital and they did some tests and they said she's in distress. And yeah, that everything happened so fast. So went into emergency C-section, um, and then she stopped breathing. They got her back to breathing again, but she just couldn't breathe on her own. So she was on a ventilator, and 5 hours later, yeah, they couldn't do anything, and she passed on. So on the 28th of August 2014, at 13 minutes past 10, we lost our first child.
Sure.
Also, what I wanted,
Stephanie,
yes,
sorry, can I just interject there? How far were you
hmm,
pregnant? How many weeks?
I was 38 weeks pregnant. I was
Okay.
full term. I was
Yeah.
about to give birth. And she was also a very big baby. So at 38 weeks, I was like, she was 3.2 kgs already.
Mm.
And also, what I wanted to add with that is it was such a traumatic day because while they were taking her out, my heart also stopped beating for a few seconds.
Sure.
So it was also a case of also almost losing myself. My husband
Mm.
almost lost me, and we
Mm.
actually lost her. So yeah, it was a full-term pregnancy, and yeah, that's my first story. So I
And
don't know if
everything
you want to
went
ask.
well.
Everything went well. Like
Mm.
I went for my checkup the week before. Everything was good, and in the blink of an eye, in a week's time, everything just changed. And yeah, unexpectedly we lost her. So
Sure.
yeah,
Stephanie, how old were you when you went through this experience?
I was 25 years old.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm
Sure.
35 today, so it was for a 25-year-old, that was like quite a knock.
Mm.
Like they say, you usually like bury your parents, right? But
Mm. Mm.
yeah, parents do like stand next to an open grave of the child
Mm.
is extremely painful. And I can tell you these 10 years as it wasn't easy. It was
Mm.
definitely not easy mentally. Um, and today is actually Mental Health Day, the 10th of October.
Mm.
So mentally, it was a very, very, very tough time for me this last 10 years. And I can tell you that last year was actually the year that I got my breakthrough, where I started healing.
Mm.
And today I can talk about it and I can speak about my all the kids that I've lost without even tearing up. So
Sure. Well, I'm
yeah,
very grateful that you are here and able and willing to share your story with us. And I'd love to
yeah.
ask you about how you got to that breakthrough in a minute. But please tell us about the others that you lost.
So in
Mm,
2020, now I need to think of dates. 2020, so 2018, I had my daughter's turning 6 on Saturday. So I got blessed with a little girlie that I have, and I'm very grateful for her. And then I fell pregnant again in May 2022, and that was like that ended very quickly for us. It was a
mm,
miscarriage. I miscarried at about 9 weeks.
mm,
So yeah, that also, like, you just started getting better, and then it's like all the plasters just get ripped off, like, and you're back to square one. And then fell pregnant again in September 2022, and that was actually a twin. Um, Went for the scan, saw the two little, and in December of 2022, I lost the first one. So also, like, started bleeding, went to the hospital, and yeah, went through that process again. And then we had our one last born. Her name was Jayla. So the first one was Gabriella, and then we had Jayla. And Jayla's story was she was extremely sick. So we went to the 20 week scan, and then we had to go again at 22 weeks. She had problems with her heart. She had holes in her heart. In the 2 weeks, from 20 to 22 weeks, I lost my amniotic fluid.
sure.
She had problems with the kidneys. She had a lot of issues. I went into the hospital, went into labor, and then while I was in labor, she passed away. So, like, while I was pregnant with her, I was like almost 6 weeks, and they did an emergency C-section, took her out, and then I also almost lost my life again because
Sure.
then I ended up having sepsis. So
Mm,
for a week, I was fighting for my life in hospital. It was extreme. I will never forget it. It was I could literally feel life being drained out of me,
mhm, mm,
and I never fought so hard to, live. It's not that I can tell you I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to die. But I just knew that I have to fight because there's still one little girl that needs a mother. So I can Gianna, my daughter, my only living child. She is literally I love for that child. I push through for her, and yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough, but yeah, by God's grace, I'm here, and 10 years later, I'm still here, and
wow.
I can tell my story.
Mm. Stephanie, I want to just take a moment and acknowledge your tremendous loss. I am so sorry for all the loss that you've
Yeah.
been through and the grief that you've had to deal with. I just want to acknowledge that. Wow, what an incredible story. Sure.
Yeah.
So can you share with us, having you've actually lost children at various different phases.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, After a full-term pregnancy, in the first trimester, well, towards the end of the first trimester, um, and twins. How does that impact you if it happens? I mean, only once I myself had a miscarriage also towards the end of my first trimester. And I
Yeah.
know the impact that it had on me. But having to deal with it continuously, how does that impact you?
Um, well, like I said earlier, mentally, it really took a toll on me. For 9 years, since 2014, I was on antidepressants and anxiety medication because I couldn't, I didn't want to deal with reality, and I rather chose to be on medication to, like, help me not forget but cope with all
Mm-hmm.
that emotions.
Mm,
And I need to share this, and I actually asked our in at our church, there's a pastor, Pastor Lanzal, And one day she actually ministered to me and she told me that the spirit of depression is, I'm going to stop taking antidepressants and all that stuff. And
Mm.
that's the night as I went like totally cold turkey with my anti-anxiety medication and
Mhm.
antidepressants. And it's almost like I just decided like now's the time to take my life back because I've been so dependent on, I need to cope. I need to like deal with my emotions.
Mm.
And also with that came, there was so many stuff that went on. Um, now I actually put a lot of blame on my husband as well, and I had to start forgiving people and myself to start healing.
Mhm.
It impacted so many stuff. It impacted my relationships. It impacted my marriage. And after I decided that it's now time to start dealing and start forgiving and start
Mm.
actually acknowledging what happened, that's when all that stuff started getting better in my life. Um, a lot of people don't know this, but I was at a point of getting divorced because of how this impacted my relationship with my husband, because
Mm.
in the back of my mind I was still blaming him.
Mhm.
I just felt that he wasn't there enough for me with my pregnancy with Gabriella, the first one. We had a lot of issues when I was pregnant with with the twins, and I blamed him. In the back of my mind, I blamed him, and that impacted our marriage.
Mm.
So after I started healing and dealing and forgiving, I think
Mm.
forgiveness is a big factor. Yeah.
Mm.
Everything just started getting better in my life. And I'm talking about relationships like family and friends
Mm.
and all that stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a tough road, but like I've realized that if you put your mind to it, you can get through a
Mm.
lot of stuff in life.
Stephanie, can you tell us a bit about that forgiveness? You mentioned how you felt about your husband. And I
Yeah,
think it's absolutely incredible that you guys are still together after all the grief that you've had to deal with or that you are carrying. But you
yeah,
also mentioned forgiving yourself.
yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
So I blamed myself as well. So as a mother and as the person carrying this child, you go through all the emotions. I felt that I could have done certain things better, or I could have ate better, or I could have done this better. So
Mm.
a lot of the blame, I blamed myself so much as well. And in this 9 years, since 2014 and up until last year, I tried to take my life numerous times. Like I literally, I remember my mother, um, just after I lost my first one, she spoke to someone, and I never knew that it impacted her so much. And she told him that she worked night shift as a nurse, and she said that while she was working, she prayed every night, like, please let my child just be alive when I get home.
Mm.
And I had to like start with myself, and told myself, like, Stephanie, but you did all you could. You
Mm.
did all you could. You went for all your appointments. You drank, you like took all your vitamins, sorry. You took
Mm.
all the stuff, and you know, forgive yourself. It's not your fault. And
Mm.
life happened. And this is part of the journey that, this is part of your life story, and this is part of your testimony. So I started by forgiving myself. And after I forgave myself, I could forgive everyone else that I felt, or that I basically blamed
Mm.
for their deaths. So yeah.
So you said it was last year that you had the breakthrough. Does that mean that you were struggling to forgive yourself and the people around you up until last year for that long
Up
period
until
of time?
last for so long.
Sure.
It's very, I can't tell you, it's like the worst pain ever.
Mm.
And I know other mothers that went through it they will know how it feel, and you as well that had a miscarriage. It's like the worst pain. I can't explain the pain. And I got to a point where I was actually so worried about myself because I started numbing myself so much that I felt like I don't feel anything anymore. Um, in 2020 with COVID or 2021, I lost one of the closest people to me. He was a father figure to me. It was my uncle. And I struggled to cry. And that's when I realized, but you know, I am actually not facing reality anymore.
Mm,
And last year I just, you know, I I just stopped and took a break and stopped the medication. This year, I think it's now January that I'm now totally clear. I never took another tablet in my life.
mm,
I threw away all my antidepressants and I've allowed myself to start feeling again. So
mm,
I go through the emotions and I go through, grief. I started grief like this year, beginning of the year, I actually mourned the death of my kids.
mm,
And yeah, I'm here in it's October already and I can tell you like I feel so, like something has been lifted off my shoulders.
mm,
Um and every year, especially with Gabriella's death, like the day she died, the 28th of August, I would be in a state. And
mm,
this year, I just told my husband, we took off for the day and we just did some stuff together. And the evening, I told him, like, we didn't go to a grave and I didn't cry once today. Do you realize that what this means? It means that I've
mm,
accepted it. It's finally, I've accepted in my heart that
mm,
I came to peace with it. And also I realized that a grave means nothing. There's nothing. But they will always live here. Like I keep my
mm.
babies in my heart. You can probably see I have tattoos and all is like
Yes.
it's for my babies. So I
Okay.
carry them with me like
Mm.
daily.
That is interesting and beautiful. I'm not going to ask you to take off your
Yeah.
clothes and show us, but can you tell us? You said for your babies, have you got something special tattooed for each one of them that's got a specific
So
meaning?
I still have to get Jayla's one, but I have Gabriella's. I have an infinity heart with Gabriella's name
Mm,
and a date. And then this tattoo is just this was mostly for my grandma, but it was also when I lost that pregnant the miscarriage that I had. So
mhm,
this is like a I don't know what can't remember what you call it, but it's basically a
mhm.
memorial type of thing that I had
Yes.
tattooed on my chest. So yeah, I still am to have more done.
Well, what a beautiful way to honor their memory. I think it's beautiful
Yeah,
to do that. You carry them
yeah,
with you always. Yes.
yes,
Wow. What a story. Tremendous loss and grief. And it is such a burden to carry guilt and blame and probably
yeah,
shame as well, and everything that
yeah,
goes with it. Because I know from my own experience also, and many of my clients that I've helped through similar situations, that we end up going through things in our minds endlessly. What could I have done better? What could I have done
yes,
different? I shouldn't have done that thing. And maybe I should have taken better care. And maybe I should have been more careful and all those things. And we drive
yeah,
ourselves nuts, basically. And as you said, it's actually nobody's fault.
yeah.
These things happen, and
It does
miscarriages,
happen.
stillbirths, and all these things are actually quite common. As hard
Yeah,
as it is actually quite common.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what I realize in society, it's almost like you can't speak about it, but
Mm,
it's something that happens so much out there. With it being like infant and child lost awareness month as well,
mm,
I never knew that it I, I never knew that it happens to so many women.
mm,
And that's why I'm also starting this initiative of I actually gave it a name already. And
mhm,
it's and let me just get the name. So it's Angel Wings, a mother's grief support group.
okay.
So what I realized with all my losses is there was no support. Oh, not no support, but basically everyone when I went to, like, psychologists or all these people,
Mhm,
all of them just told me the same thing. It's like I wish I could have known how you felt. And for
Sure.
me, it was, I want you to know how I feel. I want to be able to speak to someone and they know exactly how it feels. They
Mm,
know that pain. And that's why I asked on that Mamahood Cape Town group. And there were so many women that reached
mm,
out to me because I think we all just looking for a community of women that knows how it feels.
mm,
And when you have your days, you can literally speak to someone and
mm,
just, you know, you can relate to me and I can relate to you.
mm.
So yeah, it
Sure.
it is something that happens, I can
Well, it's
say, like
wonderful.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And it's wonderful that you're starting an initiative to support women and create a community. There's a great big need for that. And just
Yes.
being able, as you said, to speak to somebody who's been on a similar journey, who knows what it
Yeah.
feels like, because it's profound. The impact is profound. And we all deal with our loss and our grief in our own
Yeah.
unique way, and there's no
Yeah.
there's no timeline or deadline for it. We all do it at our own pace and in our own
Yeah.
time. So support is very, very important. Can you
Extremely.
tell us, being in a relationship, and obviously we know also that mothers and fathers deal with this kind of loss and grief very differently. Can you tell us a bit about how your now husband has dealt with it? How did it impact him?
Um, you know what? My husband is someone that doesn't show, he doesn't wanna like show his emotions.
Mm,
But I think it when he speaks about it or when he used to speak about it, you can see like it it gave him like a major knock in life.
mm,
And when he starts speaking about it, he always tells people like how we was in the middle of of theater, and you could see my heart flatlining and them struggling with a baby on the one side. For him it felt like his world is like crumbling down, he's losing
mm,
everything right now. And it really him specifically, he is still struggling a lot.
mm,
There will be days that he will tell me that he like, especially because I blamed him as well.
mm,
Um, that also, made him like just, it hurt him so much.
mm,
And I think, but after we actually, for the first time in 10 years, almost 10 years, we had a conversation and I told him why I felt so, why
mm,
I had all that feelings. And when I started forgiving him and not bringing it up because I was like, I used to bring it up a lot.
mm,
I could see he's also starting to do better.
mm,
We also went through something now in July. I got diagnosed with endometriosis, and yeah, so we basically, I think we are both. I'm more healed at the moment, but he still has to go through all that emotions. But for him as a man, they want to be strong for the woman. They
mm,
want to be strong, so don't want to show how they really feel. But as I said, sometimes I can see that, wait, you now going through something, and then I
mm,
usually tell him like, please speak to me, tell me how you feel.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's still very hard for him. He will speak about our daughters so much, and especially with our almost 6-year old, she is at the point now of she wants siblings, and knowing I can't really give her that. So
mm,
he always tried to just tell her about you, but you do have sisters, they're just not
mm,
here.
mm,
So it did. Yeah, he was broken, he was a extremely
mm,
broken person. But I can see, as the time goes on now, that he is also healing, and especially with our relationship being where it is now as to where it was,
mm.
that's also helping a lot. Yeah.
And there's really not much support, if any support, out there for men who are suffering the loss of children and in early stages.
Yeah.
There is to
Yeah.
some degree for women, but there's really nothing for men. And I think
Yeah.
in many cultures, the loss is maybe not even regarded as much for fathers
Yeah.
as it is for
Yeah.
mothers, which is a shame.
It
Mm,
is.
mm,
It is. And the men are just expected to be strong.
mm.
So
And I think it's a
it
beautiful
is
thing
a
that
shame.
men can be strong and try to be strong, but we need to
Mm.
acknowledge their loss also and their
Yes.
grieving process. Very important.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
And talking on a technical level, you mentioned that you've now been diagnosed with endometriosis, which is also a complex situation.
Mm.
But having had so many losses, have you managed to get any kind of medical explanation for it? And if you have, does that help one to deal with the loss and the grief?
Listen, they did so many tests. They couldn't find
Yeah.
anything wrong. They actually tested our genetics as well, myself and my husband, to see if there's something. There was nothing. So there
Mm,
actually is no explanation as to why it happened like it happened.
mm,
And especially the fact that we had Gianna, and Gianna was perfectly healthy. She's a very healthy child. Um, you know, they I last year as well, after we losing Jayla, they said that because we have a healthy child, we can have, kids.
mm,
It's just they can't explain. They did tests after I lost Gabby. They tested my placenta. They tested every single thing possible, but there were no explanation.
mm,
So that is also something that I had to deal with because I went through these 9 years. I got so extremely angry when I
mm,
look outside and I see there is mothers that throws their kids away, and then there is people like me, that
mm,
wish I could have my kids with me. So that was also a lot that I had to deal with. I had to, yeah, there was a lot of fighting with
mm,
God, a lot. And I usually mention this. Yeah, I fought, I was angry, and I screamed, and why me? And
mm,
um, until I, started dealing actually with everything inside.
mm.
So, yeah, it's
And
a
the anger
complex
is also part
situation.
of the grieving process. We all
It
know that we
is.
go through, stages. There are
Yeah,
many people who've actually developed stages for grief, and we go through
yeah,
denial, we go through anger and deep, deep depression,
mm,
and all those things before we get through on the other side where we
yeah,
can start noticing that we are healing. And I'm so glad that you are there, that you managed to be able, that you can say now, um, I'm healing,
I'm
finally.
healing.
Yeah.
Finally.
It's so
Um,
beautiful when to hear you say that, and I think that's inspiring. I get goosebumps thinking about it, and that's inspiring for every mother and father out there who has ever lost a
yeah,
child. There is healing. We can heal, but we
yeah,
do carry our grief with us. It's not something we ever get over. I think we learn to
yes.
carry it
We
with
learn
us.
to carry it, and as time goes on, like they usually say time heals all wounds, and
Mm,
I can like testify to that and say, but it's true. Like over 10 years, I can say that I'm not, you know, fully healed because I still have my days where I would
mm,
like shed a tear or, have my days where I'm like, oh, I wish I can just have all my babies with me. But I am not that broken person that I
mm,
used to be.
mm.
I was broken. I was shattered actually.
Yeah.
And it's just by the grace of God that I'm at where I'm at right now. And yeah, I just feel so blessed that I
Mm,
don't have to take medication to just
mm,
function anymore. So that is actually what I went through. I had to go from the one medication to the other one, and I had to mix all of them just to be able to cope and function
Mm.
a full day.
Mhm.
And yeah, I am today. I'm not on any medication. Yes, I take my sinus tablets because I have extreme bad sinus, especially this time of the year. But that's all the medication that I'm taking at the moment. And for me, that's just such a blessing and such a
Yes.
breakthrough.
Mm. And that's amazing that you are where you are now. And sometimes
Yeah.
we need that medication to help us through the difficult phase.
Yes. Yes.
And crutches are important, and we can't
Yeah.
always get through the stuff without them. So they have a
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yes.
Talking about that, can you tell us a bit about how your experiences has influenced your parenting with your daughter?
So I don't actually want to say this, but I'm very overprotective.
Hmm.
Um I'm extremely overprotective. I'm probably not supposed to be like this, but this is the only child I have. This is the only child I got blessed with, and I literally, I do everything for her. She is like I said, she's my life.
Mm.
And unfortunately, because she's the only one, and because I had so many losses, she's extremely spoiled. She gets everything she wants, and it's not supposed to be like that. But yeah, I am sometimes, especially when I was struggling with my mental health, there were times I got so impatient with my daughter. So after I started my healing process, I started becoming more patient with her, and you know, realizing how blessed I am to
Mm.
actually be able to have this daughter of mine. Because it could have been that I had none. I could have had no kids,
Sure.
but I
Yeah.
got blessed with the one, and I'm telling you, she's spoiled. She's very spoiled by myself and her father. Like, if she says, I want this, she gets.
Mm.
So yeah, that is
Well, I
our one and
suppose,
only.
yeah, that's your prerogative after everything that you've been through.
Oh, after everything we've
Yeah.
been through, yeah.
And you mentioned that you're very overprotective. There must be some fear, or probably a lot of fear around losing her. And
Hmm.
yeah, I can imagine.
I will not. This one time she got so sick, and on our way to the hospital, she got a fever fit.
Sure.
I can't tell you how I felt, and all I started doing was praying, like, please, Lord, please, this is my only child, please, please.
Mm.
So it got better. It actually got so much better, but the first, I can say, 3 to 4 years of her life, like those fears were there, and
Mhm.
but yeah, sometimes we just have to keep the faith, and you pray over your kids every day, like you
Mm.
just know they will be fine. But yeah, it was bad at
Thankfully,
first.
it gets better with time. No, as you
Mm,
said, time heals.
yeah,
Stephanie, can I ask, from if we look at it from the other angle, you mentioned earlier that your husband has told your daughter that she has other sisters, they're just not with her.
yeah,
Many families don't talk about these things. Many
yeah,
miscarriages or stillbirths are kept secret, or just so painful that they never talk about it, they don't mention it. So children often
yeah.
grow up not even knowing that there were other
Mm,
siblings. And I'm curious to know, how have you how have you shared this with your daughter? Obviously, age appropriately, because she's still quite young. How do you do that? How did you do that so that she's aware of it, and um, if one can even think about it, that are comfortable with it, or accepting it as part of her life story?
yeah. So, Gabriella, actually, we go to the cemetery, and we've been taking Gianna since she was a papa baby.
Mm-hmm.
So she knew about, there
Mm,
is this little grave.
mm,
And I think as she started getting older, she now and we explained to her that that is your sister, but she's with Jesus now.
mm,
She started accepting it. But um Jayla's pregnancy or the twins' pregnancy, my tummy was big already. She knew there was a
Mm,
baby in my tummy,
mm,
and suddenly everything was gone. So over time, we started explaining to her that unfortunately Jayla went to Jesus, and what we did last year on Gabriella's birthday, I had Jayla cremated,
mhm,
and we took her ashes and we went to go throw it in Gabriella's grave, like in the tombstone. We made a hole, or they
mhm,
made a hole for us, and we let Juliana, our daughter, throw the ashes in there.
mm,
So she knows that that's her sister's. And
mm,
we went through a time where she would ask us daily, "Can I go visit my sisters? Can we
mhm,
go visit Jesus?" And we had to go through that as well. But because myself and my husband wanted to know that there
mm,
were two before, or there were one before her, and you know after she was born there was another one, and she's aware of that one.
mm,
We wanted to be aware of it, and to acknowledge them also when she's older, because they are still a part of our lives, and they will always be a part of our lives. They will always be a part of our stories, and we will always acknowledge them as our kids.
mm,
It's a very difficult question. Usually, when people ask me, "So, how many kids do you have?"
mm,
At first, I couldn't answer it, but now I
mm,
just say one on earth and three in heaven.
mm.
There we go. Actually, three. It is three, yeah, and three in heaven. Four in heaven, actually, with a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just tell them one on earth and four in heaven. So that's how I also acknowledge them. I think it's at the end of the day, you need to acknowledge that they were life. They were
Mm.
life.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
What a beautiful way to explain it. One on earth and four in heaven. I think that's
yeah.
beautiful. And I noticed right in the beginning, you remember the exact date and the time of your first um, birth. Do you remember? Do you have dates and times that you commemorate uh, for all your children?
Um, the two miscarriages, I actually don't remember, and I usually go check on paper because I
Mhm.
was in hospital when that happened. But Jayla was the 17th of February 2023.
Mm,
The the time I can't tell you because I was extremely medicated.
mm,
But they went to go and do the emergency C-section on the 18th, but she passed away in my womb on the 17th.
mm.
So I remember that date.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
They remain etched in our memories. Hey, wow.
yes.
What an incredible story. I'm so glad that we connected and that I got you here to share this with us. And I'm sure every person who's going to listen to this or watch this will be inspired. It's deeply moving. And I'm also so grateful to hear a story of a couple who has gone through so much together and are still together, because we know statistically actually that the loss of a child uh, more often than not ruins a relationship or
Hmm.
marriages for that matter. So you are of the few, uh, can I say, fortunate ones or tough ones who managed to get this far. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And we've been together for 15 years. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
my young
Yeah.
liefde.
How beautiful. Yeah. Well, it's wonderful. And I often wonder when well, we all get married because we want to grow old together. When we look back at these sort of experiences, when it's 10 or 20 or 30 years afterwards, and you can still be together and think, wow, that was a really difficult time. That was really painful.
Exactly.
And here we
Yeah.
are. We
Yeah, we
managed
are.
to get through. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's
And I
incredible.
also I think the reason, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but mostly I think the reason why people split up at the end of the day is because of that thing I mentioned earlier about unforgiveness.
Mm,
Because
mhm,
it does. Like I said, I was at the point of I can't do this anymore. I need to get divorced now.
mhm,
Not knowing that it it actually the root cause of everything was the blame that I've put on my husband for
mm,
Gabriella. And after letting go of that and forgiving him, um yeah, we are at such a good space, and yeah, loving life, loving each other. I'm Ikisasa. I'm again like, a little girl, extremely in
mm.
love.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful. Was he, you mentioned that you brought it up a lot, so he was aware that you were carrying this, this
So
emotion.
whenever there was an argument, then I would bring that up, and I would know, I knew it hurt him, and that was just part of like, why must I didn't acknowledge that he's also hurt. So I
Mm,
just to like feel the way I feel, I used to bring that up. And yeah, one day he told me that those words broke him so much.
mm,
And I had to ask him for forgiveness. And yeah, from there, we just started healing together. And yeah, at the place now, yeah, I'm
good
very in love.
place. Wow, that is so beautiful. So, Stephanie, in closing, what golden nugget of advice can you give another woman, another mother who's facing a similar thing, and a couple or family who
Hmm.
experiences this kind of loss? What would you say to them?
Firstly, they need to face reality. I think that's the first thing I didn't do.
Mhm,
I didn't want to face reality, and that's why I can say I popped myself so much with medication so that
mm,
I didn't have to deal with reality. Um, you need to face reality, and you need to, um, acknowledge that child,
mm,
that was a love. um like I said, relationships, if there was issues that where you feel like you blame your partner, you need to speak about it. Rather
mm,
speak about it sooner than later. Forgive each other, forgive yourself. And yeah, um and just know that there is women out there going through similar situations, and that has gone through it and been through it, and you can get through it. You can get
mm,
through it.
mm,
It's not the end of your life. It's the end. Your child passed away, but you still have a life to live,
mm,
and it just means that your story is not done yet. Your story is not done yet. It's part of your testimony, and you can like touch another woman's life with your story.
mm,
I usually say that I'm gonna speak about I always speak about God because I am
mhm.
just and I love God so much. And yeah, so I said on the 28th of August, on Gabriella's birthday, my status on Facebook was, "Your story is the key that can unlock someone else's prison."
Sure.
So, and that came from my heart. So, my story can help another woman get through what I went through like
Mm,
10 years ago. Um,
mm,
and also, especially like showing them that with God in your life and the grace of God, you can get through anything. You
mm,
can literally get through anything. And if you have God in your life, you can face anything.
mm.
So yeah,
I love that. So
that is my
my
story.
story can be the key that unlocks another woman's
Some
prison. Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
I
sharing.
thank you for having me. It was so amazing to just share my story, and I think it's time. 10 years later, it's time to share my story.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I'm so grateful that you are there and ready and willing to do that. And also reaching out to support other women. I think it's amazing.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much. I
that.
appreciate it.